All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. Let me know that you can see me and hear me okay. And I'm just going to jump right in. Looks like we got a couple people on the stream. Thanks. Like I said on Twitter, this is just a little quick stream I want to do, just trying to get back into streaming. It's been a couple weeks. But yeah, going to basically do some streams over the next few days, and then I'm hoping the last part of the month to do kind of like I did in August, where I pretty much stream once a day, every day of the week, and kind of build something new, something from scratch. So just a little side project that I'm thinking about. So we'll try it out. Adrian, hey. Hello again. Yes, I was just on Christoph's stream. So we'll probably, like I said, make this one a little shorter since I was just on another stream that I didn't totally expect to be on there. So I've already done my streaming for the day, I think. Okay, so what I want to do today is a couple days ago I was running some tests and I got a warning, and I would reproduce it, but now I can't remember what project it was on. But one of the projects I was working on, I ran the test suite, and Faker complained and said, hey, we now prefer using the method calls instead of the property access. So you call methods. But if we go look at like Faker PHP, like kind of the original before the library was archived and handed off, you'll kind of see that like a lot of these were just they didn't really use the method calls. Like it was actually the example, if we look, wasn't there was just property access. So I think a lot of applications are going to be using these things this way, when really I guess now the preferred way. And again, you might get a warning when you run your tests to use these new methods. So because of that, I want to make just a quick little task inside of Shift. It'll go into the workbench. So for those that aren't familiar, laravelShift.com. Let me get the audio stuff out of the way there so I can click around freely. There we go. If we go take a look at the workbench, for example, we see that we run all sorts of things. And what I'd like to have is one for like, Faker methods or something like that, which of course doesn't exist yet. So that's what I want to have happen. Yeah, howdy Mark, how's it going? So that's what we're gonna build today. We're gonna build just a real simple kind of converter that goes in. It's pretty naive. It's gonna look for, Faker arrow and convert anything that's a property on the other side to its method counterpart. We will do a little bit of whitelisting probably of like, what these methods should be, but for the most part, it's just going to be pretty straightforward. So yeah, let's get in there. So let's do git checkout -p Faker methods task, and I'm going to bring up PHP Storm. Let me bring the comments back up. Christoph, hey. Welcome back. All right, and let's go to Shift. Okay, so the first thing I need to do inside of Shift, anytime I make a task, it has to be registered with what's called a task factory. And this task factory is really just a big switch statement. Probably could convert it to a match statement to have it return these different things. So this will just be a PHP task since it's not necessarily Laravel specific. So I'm just going to go to the bottom of the PHP ones here and bring that over. And let's call this Faker methods. And we'll do the same thing here, Faker methods. And there's no additional with. With is normally like if you had some data here. So if you said something like with, format, Laravel or whatever, like that would be some additional options you could pass to that workbench task, but there are no additional options for this task. It just converts the methods. There's nothing to configure. So let's create this class. And it's going to be in Shift Tasks Workbench Faker Methods. All that looks good. So okay, PHP Storm, thank you. And to clean this up, we're going to need to extend the task class. And this just gives us some, that's not working, right? There we go, add method stubs. This just gives us a perform. And think of this much like in Laravel, a command that handles something. This is kind of like the handle method of a command in Laravel. So the perform method of a task is basically where the magic happens. So, you know, do this stuff. And we'll just pseudocode this out, and then I'll probably attempt to drive this with some test cases, of course. So really what we want to do is search for instances of Faker. That's pretty straightforward. And then we would probably want to read in the file, of course, and then replace any property calls with method call, and then save the file. So again, super straightforward stuff here, but it'll save somebody from writing crazy regular expressions on their own. We can do that for them and have a nice little task. And again, since Faker's free, since this is a PHP task, blah, 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 I'll probably just make this a free task in the workbench. It's pretty lightweight. So let's just get this going here. So there's our pseudocode, Faker methods. Let's go make a test. So let me bring up my test suite. Let's go down to tasks, workbench. And just for giggles, again, for speed, I'm going to copy probably just one of these real quick, and let's start setting this up. So Faker methods, and let's close that. And then anywhere in here I say anonymous migrations, probably should just be called Faker methods. All right. And, oh, that's not what I wanted. There we go, Faker methods, cool. I should not have hit enter. It made it a method, or it made it a call to the class. Okay, so everything's Faker methods now. So we've got some setup here, var subject, Mockery interface, all that kind of stuff. We don't need to mess with configuration, so that's fine. So what we do in our setup here is we basically mock out the Shift facade. And if you've watched any of the previous streams, everything that Shift does is really just a facade for kind of this underlying class. It's a utility class. Think of it much like Carbon. It just has hundreds of methods on it to do all sorts of things that I might want to do when running a Shift. So I don't necessarily break these up. It's all just in kind of this utility class that's hidden behind what I call the Shift facade. Much like facades in Laravel, again, I'm kind of applying those same concepts. I can mock it and swap it out that way at runtime. You know, I'm able to have a hook into my test. And I do the same with a log facade, again, much like Laravel. This just gives me some output to the system. So that's really all my setup is. I'm just kind of swapping those out so I can use those freely in my tests and kind of have that hook, or sorry, use them in my implementation, but they're easy to test here. So let's start changing these up and making these a little more specific to the task at hand, no pun. So it does nothing when no Faker calls are found. And so what we're going to do is basically just say something like find files containing, and this is just going to be real simple. We'll just say like Faker arrow. Like if you don't call Faker arrow somewhere in your file, you're probably not using one of these, right? It's not 100%, but let's just kind of start there, right? So in this case, we're going to call this helper method with this, and it's going to return no paths, an empty array. and at this point, nothing should happen. We're going to call perform, and no log, no files, nothing else needs to be mocked out because it's not going to do anything else. So that's pretty straightforward. So when we do have stuff, though, that gets returned, so let's just kind of start this next test. We can say something like it converts property calls to methods, which is what we expect, right? So in this case, let's just, for now, we're just going to return something like basic.php. This is just going to be our basic conversions. I normally try to do in my tests like a basic and like a complex, and this is just kind of placeholders for stuff. So today we're going to write the basic. I'm sure people will find instances that the code that I've written doesn't convert. And when they send those to me, I'll start building up a complex use case. So today we might just do a real simple complex one, but I'll add more and more and more to that complex one. So the basic one's just going to be like straight conversion list. Like here's all the faker things, and then, you know, here's what we expect them to be. So let's drive this out. When we get file contents for basic, we're going to give it back a fixture. So let's just call this tests, and then faker, and then properties. Properties basic, we'll call it. All right. And then put file contents, basic, tests, faker, properties, basic after. Let me close the chat here. It's in my way again. All right. No op we're actually not messing with, and we said complex. We will go ahead and write a really simple, you know, 1 or 2 examples of what complex code might look like. So let me just quickly replace these, complex. And we don't need to mess with running Laravel. At this point, we should perform, and we also should have received event with found faker instances or something like that. You know what? I don't even think I care about the log facade today. Yeah, I don't think the log facade's gonna do anything today. There's nothing to really log out. So let's kill this other test, because this is a super basic bit here. And I'm gonna have to fire up Docker to run these. So let's let the old Docker spin up real fast, and let's go ahead and kind of bring these back to life here. So I'm gonna run the tests. We'll kind of see where we land. And while Docker's firing up, what I'm gonna need, we're gonna need a reference to like all the properties that faker could have. And I wonder somewhere in their code if they have these written out somewhere. I thought I remembered like them having a little place in the code. Where's like English US? Let's see. I thought they had some doc blocks or something where like all of them were kind of available, that I was hoping I could copy and paste, you know, what the property names would be. But I don't think I'm gonna get that lucky. Guesser name? No. Here's some of them, but it's not that awesome. The old faker does have at least like available methods or something here, but I don't know how many of these are able to be. I mean, I guess all these are potential property names, so like I could just start pulling all these across. Yeah. Okay, well, let's get into Docker and let's just run this test to watch it fail real fast. So let's do vendor bin PHP unit. Okay, so find files should be called exactly 0 times. Of course, we're not calling it. So let's just start kind of driving this out willy-nilly. So let's just say paths equals shift, find files containing, and faker arrow. So pretty straightforward spell checky stuff. So now we should get a little farther. Okay, and now the first one passes, but the second one starts to fail because, of course, this file doesn't exist. So let's start making these real quick. Make dir -p, whoops, -p, and then let's touch this for now. And we're going to need to touch the dot after. And let's run those tests again. It should complain about the complex one now. Whoops. Didn't go far enough up. Yeah, there we go. There's the complex one. So touch and dot after. And cool. So method get file contents basic should be called, wasn't called. Okay. So I know that it's going to fail. I'm just going to jump ahead here. So basically if empty paths, then we would know to return. Otherwise, we're going to for each over paths as path. And then we're going to say contents equals shift get file contents. And this will effectively be the path, of course. And then here's where we're going to still need to replace the property calls. And then ultimately we're going to say shift put file contents, contents path. Or I might have just done that backwards. Yeah, it's path contents, sorry. So path, and you can kind of see that these are really just wrappers for those other bits. So this should actually end up being green because there's nothing in those files, so we're not replacing anything and we're saving them back out as empty files. So this is just a demonstration of really the test structure and the setup. So now is kind of the hard part, right? We need to start building out those those fixtures for what we kind of expect the code to look like before and after. And that's kind of the power of fixtures. I really like using them in the case of Shift, where it's kind of like code manipulation. I'm not gonna have to like do any of the, inline parsing or whatever. Like, yeah, I do kind of set up some spell checky stuff for this outer portion, but all of the magic that's gonna happen right here, I don't have to worry about doing any more expectations or anything for it. All that kind of gets tested at a really high level. So I'm really just mocking out kind of the file and system IO, which I think you would have to do really more or less no matter what. Okay, so in the absence of any kind of like really cool list, I think what I'm gonna do is probably start just bringing these over. Or at least the ones that are pretty obvious that they're not, they're kind of not what we expect them to be. So let's go to this basic.php and, oh wow, there's a lot of those. All right, cool. And let's just bring these in here for a second. And it's a little annoying, but let's just copy a few of these. I'm not gonna copy every single one on the page. I can do that kind of off stream. Let me just get a fair amount of these and we'll go from there. And again, I don't even know if all these can be called in a property-esque kind of way, but it doesn't hurt to have more, I don't think. So let's just, again, kind of go down the page, get as many of these as possible. We'll kind of start to clean them up. And I'll add and remove them with a more fine-tooth comb later. So I don't think real text would probably I don't know. It might. You never know. Let's just stick with it. Let's go to the bottom here. It's starting to get a little weird. Let's take those. All right. What else do we have? Internet. So yeah, those are definitely, now we're getting down to the good stuff here. So these we know are definitely just property access. Credit cards, same thing. Should be a pretty good amount here. So the regex colors. How many more do we have? Oh god, we got a lot of these. All right, I'm gonna stop with the file ones. And again, we can get the rest of these later. So I think what I'm gonna do is try to take that so I can chop off the end. So let's just keep going here. There we go. All right. We'll go one way that way. Take that off. And then we're at the beginning of the line now. Okay. So we'll save that. And then now we would need to find, I don't know if I want to find anything. See, I don't know if these, I don't know if you can call this like faker latitude. I don't know if you could have even done that even in earlier versions of faker. Like these ones that don't have any, they definitely are ones we would want to keep. But here's what I'm going to do. I hear the chat. Let's see if somebody in the chat knows something. There are really a lot. Yeah, there are definitely a bunch. All right, let's do this. Let's do a grep on -v on that. There we go. So these are the ones that we know for a fact would have properties. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with these. Let's output those into kind of like properties.log real quick. And then let's do the same thing, but with a parenthesis in methods.log. All right, let's just open these two up real quick. I'm going to get rid of properties basic. And let's open up methods.log. Okay, so these are all the ones that we're kind of not sure about and I want to check on. And then properties.log are all the ones that we know would be things we want to mess with. So let's clean this up because it does have some weird things. And let's turn this into an array real fast. So let's just say we're going to search and replace here any /w plus on the line with /0 comma. There we go. So, oh, is it $0? There we go. Replace all. All right, cool. So this, these are going to be our properties equals. Oh, I'm not PHP, so that's why I'm not getting some good, or well, I guess we can't be PHP since we're a .log file. So let's do this. Let's just return those. And I'm going to bring them over to my code now. So let's just get down in here. We're going to do private function properties. And this will just return that. And there we go. Oh, did I not get what I needed? Double return. Whoops. There we go. Okay, so sometimes when I have like really long property lists here, I like to do this in a private method instead of kind of a property on the class, just because I don't know, it's massive. It's like 100 lines. It's going to be even more as we keep looking for the rest. So it's just kind of like, I don't know, that's way too many. So I just like kind of pushing it down to the bottom of the file so I don't have to scroll past it all the time. Okay, so let's write this method with what we know, and we'll just kind of, again, make a real simple fixture to see this passing, and then I'll kind of do the boring stuff off stream where I basically go through and see which ones of these are actually property calls, and then of course finish copying the rest of those faker methods. So what we would probably want to do here obviously would be like contents equals, you know, this dot replace, or convert to methods or something like that, like convert to methods. And we would pass in contents. And so lots of content stuff here. Let's add this method. And this is a string, not an array. And what else do we have here? I like to have such, Christoph, I like to have such a long array methods. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so this is kind of pretty straightforward. We would really just look, this is where our fixtures are going to come in place. So I'm going to write the naive thing here. I'm just going to say preg replace this pattern would be pattern. We're going to mess with that here in just a second. And then, or let's call this properties. And we're going to say pattern is basically faker arrow, and then you would have to be one of these known properties, and then followed by, and really this is kind of like, we could tighten this up, but we're going to tighten this up by kind of pushing out our fixture. Let's write kind of the simple approach first here. And then I think at the end of this, you would have to be kind of like not a parenthesis is kind of what we're going to say. Like at the very end. Like if you're already a parenthesis, then you're already calling this, right? Like, so think of like, you know, name. Like name is going to be one of our property matches, but you can't really be that on the other side, right? We also don't know that you're like you are exactly a semicolon. So like, I think so long as we know that there's some kind of word boundary there, but there's some nuance to that I already know is going to be a little bit weird. So for example, like that's going to match theoretically, like if we say name, you know, JMac, like our expression for looking when we go to search for just name as the property, like if you consider that the search term, like it's going to match this, right? It's going to take just this piece. So we kind of need to be a little bit smarter is what I'm getting at, and make sure that this is not a, you know, parenthesis, opening parenthesis, but it is a word boundary, right? That's going to be the tricky part. So again, we're going to write it the naive way, but I already kind of know that that's going to be a little bit wrong. So let's go ahead and break this up. And in this case, we would say, let's change this to subject. I like calling this subject in this case. And in this case, we're just going to replace it wholesale with pretty much whatever was found, and then a parenthesis, right? But we can't replace it with exactly what was found. So we would have to capture this and this. We'd have to capture that portion of it. So whatever faker little thing we find, followed by whatever's behind it, and it can't be a parenthesis right now, or sorry, an opening parenthesis, then we would replace that with whatever we whatever we captured there, and then a parenthesis, and then of course subject. And we're just going to straight return that. Now properties is where it's going to get a little bit interesting, and I'm gonna make this static because this is pretty nasty. So static properties, and basically if empty properties, then we're going to build this out. And basically all I'm really going to do here is say properties is equal to implode of a piped thing of all the properties that come in. But because there's going to be like 100 of these, and we could potentially be looping over 100 files, I don't necessarily want to build those arrays every single time. So I'm just going to kind of do a little memoization here and statically capture that. It's a tiny, tiny micro optimization, but again, dealing with very, very large projects, I know inside of Shift that could actually cut a few seconds off of a run, which matters to me. It matters to the user, but it also matters to me as the server administrator paying the costs of these things running. So that's important. Okay, so let's kind of see this work. Let's set one of these up. And if we go look at properties log, I'm just going to bring this back to life. Let's look at hex color, just to prove that this is working, right? So let's say something like faker hex color. Whoops. All right. And then in after, we would expect it to be the same thing, but with parentheses, right? And I can already tell we missed the closing parenthesis there. All right, let's see if this passes. Okay, so no matching handler found for faker hex color. Okay, what did we mess up? Faker hex color, faker hex color, file put contents. Oh, because again, we are missing whatever we captured here. So we're gonna need to put that, whatever we did capture, there on the end. So we're gonna have to not put that, of course, that's the actual literal thing. We're gonna have to put like /2 back there. So we're basically taking the first part of what we captured, injecting a parentheses to make it a method call, and then whatever we found but didn't capture at the end, we're putting behind it. So we lost a character there is what I'm noticing, which is the semicolon. So hopefully we are now green again. So just a quick example, but let's demonstrate kind of breaking this. So let's say something like faker name of person, and we would like expect this to be name of person, but this, okay, so if we went back to our faker methods, and in here we threw in, I don't think name is in here right now, so if we threw in name, I think we'll start to see what I'm getting at. See how it put the parentheses for name instead of course, at the very end. So that's kind of the last piece that I would probably want to try to clean up real quick. And I think doing that with a regex, it's hard to kind of say it can be any character except for this character. Like any of these characters that's already in a subset, but not this particular one. That would be a little hard because I would have to like figure out, okay, you can be, a space or a semicolon or a concatenation operator or a plus operator. Like, you know what I mean? I'd have to think of all the different things you could be that are of course not the parenthesis there. And if that is kind of, if that's what it is, then like that's, I don't know. That's a never-ending list is my point. Like maybe PHP 8.2 comes out and they come out with a cool new operator. Like I don't want to play that game. So I think what I'm going to have to do here is say, I'm going to have to say capture a non-word character, right? So we're going to say faker properties and then a non-word character, meaning it's not a continued piece of what's a known property name inside of PHP. And I think I'm going to have to now change this to prerequisite callback. And we're ultimately going to have to make a little function here, or closure. So we'll say function matches. And what I'm going to need to do now is say if matches 2. So if this thing is equal to a parenthesis, then we would want to return matches 0. We don't want to do any kind of replacement because it's already in a method format. Now again, there might be a way for me to write that all in one regex, but that's, I don't know. I think that it starts to get a little bit tricky. This is the way I know I can do it right now. Again, I can always refactor this later when we prove that the tests are passing. So otherwise, we would want to end up with, we'd want to return what we had before. So now we can say return, not return $, return matches 1, the first part, concatenated with our parentheses, now to be a method, and then we need to, whatever that character was, we know it's not a opening parenthesis, we would now return it as well. And let's just clean this up real quick. So name of person should not get replaced, but name should, right? So we're in our pre, and now in our after, we would be name, but name of person, ideally, in our case, would be left alone. So if we run this again, we pass, great. And so of course, if I do something here like JMac again, we can prove that it left it alone. It didn't do anything in that scenario. So if this was already, a better example would be if this was already named to start with, it just stays named to begin with. It doesn't get like doubled up or anything. So let's make sure that's the case too. And it is. Okay, so I think this is off to a good start. Probably what I'm going to do now is basically just fill out the rest of all the crazy faker methods that are here, and then try to break it, of course, with any kind of additional syntax I can think of that might be a little bit weird. Now again, this isn't designed to get everything ever. I'm going to do the best I can to kind of find as many, but it does assume that you're using faker. You're kind of using this in the idiomatic way that they demonstrate in their examples. Like if you're doing something complex where you're calling something like this, right? Like this shift is not going to pick that up, right? So there are going to be some instances where things aren't going to get converted for you, but for the most part, I think this will work for people. So yeah, like I said, I'm going to keep going down past image, and we should see this available, I would say, maybe later today. I'll tweet it once it's out. And again, this will be a free task in the workbench. You'll just be able to come over here, and it'll be something like convert faker properties, and this will just be like a PHP as we saw, and then faker properties or faker methods or whatever we called it, and that'll be good to go. So the name can be, same thing, convert faker properties, and you'll run this, you'll get a PR, and the commit will be for all the conversions, hopefully doing the right thing. So like I said, I'll tweet when that's out. Thank you all for watching live, and I will see you all probably next week with an additional stream.